Another story that we've been tracking quite a bit, obviously, is what's going on in Brazil and the wake of the election where President Lula, or President-elect Lula, was able to come in, and there's quite a bit happening on the streets. So rather than editorialize, I will bring in our next guest, who's Ana Júlia Guedes, who's a lawyer and a militant with Levante Popular. Ana, thank you so much for being back with us.
Are you listening to me fine?
We are. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, I'm listening too.
Perfect. Well, if you could, maybe just give us a sense of what the scene is there in Brazil. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these blockades and other things in the news. I mean, where do things stand a few days after the election?
Well, first, let me say thank you for inviting me again. I hope anytime soon I can be invited to say something great that is happening in Brazil and not how Bolsonaro is destroying the country again. But anyways, what we're seeing right now all over the country are a few blockades on the highways and some protests in front of army units asking for a federal intervention in a country that has suffered 21 years of a military dictatorship on the last century. But although it is quite shocking, the scenes are unbelievable and the demandings are unbelievable. It is not unexpected considering what Bolsonaro has been saying for the last 4 years as a president. He's been saying that for the last 28 years of public life that he has. But for the last 4 years, he has been saying that the electoral system does not work. We should not trust the Ministry of Justice or the Supreme Court. We should not trust the voting. We should not trust the television. We should not trust the news. And that had, after all that had become this chaos, this chaotic situation where some of his supporters are blocking highways and creating a chaos, especially on the food system. In a country where we have 33 million people in a hunger situation, we are now having a problem of like 600,000 liters of milk that can be wasted per day with these blockades. But we have seen it's not as big as it was on Sunday or Monday. Now it is smaller. There is the support is diminishing as he pronounces through the week. He took 2 days to be alive again after the election. He took 2 days to show up. Made a very confusing and generic discourse. But now earlier today, he has asked to his supporters to leave the highways, to let the people pass, to let the economy go on. He took 4 days in a country with all this chaotic situation we already are in terms of industry and economic, but he took 4 days to finally ask the people to leave. And now people are actually leaving some parts, but that does not mean they have stopped going to, especially the army units, to ask for the federal intervention, which is completely lunatic. It is completely lunatic. Here, us as a popular movement, we're keeping our eye on it. We're trying to see where it is. Is it growing as big as out of the regions where he had the biggest votations? But for now, it is still big where Bolsonaro won the elections. There are 3 regions in the country, but which is also contradictory, because if you think where he has big supporters, and they're making bigger blockades and they're making bigger damages on their own economies. Mm-hmm. So it's quite what Bolsonaro politics and supporting is. It's quite it sounds unpolitical, but it is political in that way. And I think that's how it resembles a lot from Trump. That is something, it's a terrible parallel that can be made, but it resembles a lot because it is this denial of politics, this denial of economy that actually makes the basis of the ideology. But there is something very important here that I want to remark before we go on this this call out these protests are being called not through the traditional way they use it to do. They use it to go to their own Facebook and their own Twitter and their own Instagrams to say like the Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro, the father and now ex-president, but his son, the senator and the deputy and everybody, they would go to their own social media to say that is not happening right now. His sons, the Flávio and Carlos Bolsonaro, are on Twitter supporting these protests that are happening in front of the army units, but are not supporting these ones that are going on the highways. Which does not mean they do not support it or called it out. But the main way that these things are being called are through WhatsApp and Instagram, which is something that is happening in many other countries. That is this way to create an anonymous call out to these protests that provoke chaos and that are right wing. And here is it's coming back because through the past period he had more as he was the president and the senator and everything and his sons were he thought he could go to the social media and put his own face to say that these kind of creating chaos is supported. But as we grew on force, as we could demonstrate that he has an opposition on society, he now went back to the shadows that elected him. After all, that is Telegram and WhatsApp and this anonymous and insidious way to make politics. It's quite there's many things we had many crazy it's I don't know, in a way we think it's sad but not surprising
Hmm.
because we had even in one of our states here, Santa Catarina, that is on the south region, we had a video of a massive protests going on, and they made the Nazi the salutation to sing the national anthem. That is completely out of sense. That is completely and unacceptable. But yet we do not have. Although we are trying the Workers' Party, that is Lula's party, it is already going on the justice, asking for the law ways to get it done. But for now, we're still quite state is yet quite shy in retaining all that is happening because yet the national director of the police, it is still a man indicated by Bolsonaro. The national director of all other police forces on the states are still elected by Bolsonaro supporters that are on the governors, the state governors. So it is it is yet quite slow institutional response to this under the argument that is legal and constitutional to make these kind of protests because it's freedom of speech, which is unacceptable because we also have under the constitution saying that it's forbidden to make any sort of Nazi and fascist signs, but it is still being maintained. So it's the collapse of the Bolsonaro government. It is being as dirty and bloody uh, and slow as we thought it would be, and as we expected it will happen on the future. Because we do know that this electoral victory is only the first step on towards to actually changing the political scenario in Brazil now.
I'm curious, how important is it that the U.S. Basically noted or said to Brazil, said to Bolsonaro, respect the election results and let this be?
You see, it is. I don't want to make any offense, but it's sadly terribly important. It is really important that finalization that the U.S. Senate made was extremely important because, as Latin Americans, we know what happens when the U.S. government decides to elect some of our presidents, and in this case, when this finalization it also demonstrated to his supporters that the international support that he says that he has, because that is a very important thing, as he directs his supporters not to trust on television, not to trust on newspaper, not to trust on any radio, only to trust their own communication channels that are on Telegram, on WhatsApp, that we cannot have a really quick response to it. It is hard to demonstrate that he does not have international support as he say he has. So when the Senate votes that, if he and Joe Biden also endorses that he will not support any attempt of coup in Brazil, that creates a momentum of doubt in between the supporters, because, well, maybe something is wrong, maybe something is not as he say it is. And also because at the end, Lula was the most voted man in the history of Brazil. He had 60 million votes. No one ever had that. So, although there are 58 million that voted for Bolsonaro, in the end, the days going on, our days going on, the week is going on normally. Most of the country, it is normally going on, with some shortages happening in some places, but think the day is going, the week is going, and that also contributes to create that the idea that no, Bolsonaro does not own the reason and the truth and the last word about everything that is happening around the world and around the country.
I think it's very important context, and I appreciate it. And to some degree, it feels that the Bolsonaro supporters are afraid of change, really, as you're pointing out, because Lula is coming in now. So I was hoping you could also talk about that. I mean, what are some of the things that, popular movements are hoping to see, in the early stages of this Lula administration?
Well, you see, for us who are actually organizing the resistance on in these last 6 years since the national coup in 2016 against Dilma, we are filled with hope and filled with ideas once again. So instead, like taking these protests for as an example, we are looking closely to it. We're making meetings regularly, but we are still expecting, because we know that what is to come, it is to come. We have big expectations on terms of coming back the growth in the industry. We had a huge deindustrialization in Brazil in these last 4 years that got us to almost being totally agrarian again, which is a shame because we have one of the biggest national enterprises of oil, that is Petrobras. We have also the expectation of a larger integration with Latin America and the BRICS, which is extremely important, and it can change the entire scenario of international and the world economy. So, and we know that all the governments that Lula and Dilma made, they had this very special attention and strategic way to look to international relations. So we have that large expectation onto it, and it is going to be quite interesting to look, considering what stage is BRICS now and what stage is Latin America now, with progressist governments all over, from Mexico now down to Argentina. We're all united in a very close objective of making a new history. We also have the expectations on education and health. We have a universal health system that is an example to the entire world. That is the SUS, and we have the expectation that it goes back. It has the structure to gain space very quickly, because it already had. It was just thrown away by the government. But that we have a very big expectation, and that on the education we also have a big public education structure all over the country, and we have to make some changes, including in the content, because one of the things that the other government did, Michel Temer, was to change the educational content to make it more to make it worse, to make it more superficial, to make it more loose, especially on the social sciences part. So we have the expectation that that changes, including in the important ideology battle we have through the for the next years. So that is also something big we have. And but all that we're still aware that all that will have many obstacles, especially on the Congress, because we although Bolsonaro's party is quite it's right wing, but it's quite loose. We would call it here from the center, although the center that is always on the government. His party actually has historically been that, and the other biggest parties also. But there's going to be some favor exchanges, and we don't know yet where it goes. But we know that this education, it will be a big battle to assume. Health will be a big battle, international relations, and definitely environmental. I think that will be something that it's going to be much different from the other governments, because we not only the government and the workers party, but also we as left did not have the dimension of how the environmental matter it is important to Brazil and is structural. So, and we have a very important figure today. That I think I've heard that she's going to be the representative of the country of the government to come on the COP27. That is Marina Silva, and she's a very central figure here on the defense of the Amazonian rainforest, but the entire Brazilian ecosystem. So, as she's part again of the government, I think that will be important steps to move toward that. And I think we have big expectations, big dreams, and big hopes. And we're also trying to make these big expectations and hopes and fears and etc. but into popular organization, because we are definitely aware that we cannot count on the Congress, and we cannot count on only on the composition of the government to make it work. But I think that for us that survived through the coup to now, we have energy, and we took a few days to rest, as one of our leaders said, that it is time to rest. It is time to make some party, because it's been 6 long years of fighting the president. But now we have these expectations to believe. We believe that it is now the result of the elections also demonstrated that the Brazilian population, it is more tended to vote and to support a definite the very well defined agenda, political agenda, that some of that central thing, because it voted for Bolsonaro and for Lula, voted for two very different projects. So this is a moment where these contradictions of these class contradictions and the class struggle is quite open in the country, and we have to take this moment in order to actually inject some of the structural changes that affects many of the conservative economy and the conservative sectors of politics.
Well, Ana Júlia Guedes from Levante Popular, we look forward to talking to you more about your hopes and dreams of the popular movement coming to fruition in Brazil. And we really thank you for giving us some of your time here today on the Freedom
Thank you very much. I hope the next time we meet, I bring some great news about something great that is happening, some great summits made in Latin America with Brazil on center, and not only about how this man could manage to destroy this amazing and enormous country in so little time.
Yes, that's right. Onward and upward we go. Thank you so much.